former Australian serviceman and now a Zen monk. My name is Bryson Keenan. I'm currently a Zen monk in Japan. I've come from Australia to here. I'm a former Australian serviceman with a few other interesting jobs in between. Worked in corporate security after being in the military. And now I live in a Zen temple in Saitama in Japan. So I started karate when I was a young kid at 9 years old. I was a skinny weakling of a kid, and my dad wanted to beef me up a little bit and make sure that I could be confident with myself and carry myself a little bit better. So he took me to train at a judo school in Melbourne in Australia, the Chelsea Judo School, under a guy named Graham Stockwell, who was a judo instructor, and I thought he was a karate instructor because he started teaching me karate when I was 9. And then I discovered a couple of years later that he was just a judo instructor, and he was learning karate from books. And then at the end of that, he said to me, look, I'll take you to a legitimate karate school. And so I started training heavily in karate after that. And I'm still training now 55 years later. But that got me interested in Japan originally. So I spent 22 years in the military. You get less than that for murder, they say. The first 9 years were in a light infantry battalion, and then I transferred to intelligence corps. And the transfer process included a language aptitude test. So I sat a language aptitude test, and I passed that quite well. And they said, "What would you like to learn?" And I said, "Japanese." And they said, "Okay." So I ended up doing a 12-month Japanese course. Similar to the sort of foreign service courses that they do in the US, a very intensive 12-month training course in languages. A whole range of languages are taught at the school. But I was lucky enough to do Japanese for a year and ended up doing a study program in Japan and coming back a couple of times during my military career to do a language refresher course. My father, when I was very young, was a devout atheist, and you would think that he would have nothing to do with religion, but he had all the religion in our house. We had a bookshelf full of books, including the Bible, the Quran, some Buddhist manuscripts, a whole range of things that he had there. And he said, "There they are. Go ahead and read them if you like." So I had a bit of an interest in Buddhism because of my early training in karate, and started reading a lot, but there was no place for me to study or practice at that time. We're talking the 60s in Melbourne in Australia. But later on, I started some academic study in Buddhism. I was doing a master's in Buddhist studies. And as part of that, there was a practicum, and I had to sort of choose a practice vehicle, and thought that since I had been practicing Japanese arts up until that stage, I was going to have a look and see what the authentic practice was in the Japanese sphere, and that was Zen. I don't think there was anything that particularly drew me to Zen apart from the fact that I read about it a little bit in my studies and during my time training in karate. Uh, I'd read about other schools of Buddhism and other branches of that big tree, but none really sort of got my interest as much as Zen did, just because of the deep immersion that I already had in Budo, in martial arts, and it just seemed to be the right thing to do. And so I looked for a practice option, and for me, that ended up being a virtual option on the internet with a teacher, with an experienced teacher who tried to put me through the paces remotely. During my search online of possible places to go, I saw a video titled US Marine to Zen Monk with a guy named Scott, or Daruma-san, and he had been a US Marine for 20 years and then was in the corporate world for a while, and then ended up dissatisfied with a lot of that, ended up becoming a Zen monk. And I was in the army for 22 years and ended up in the corporate world for a while after that, and ended up dissatisfied. And I thought, oh, the story resonates with me. And so I found an email address for Daruma-san, and I contacted him, and he said, look, next time you're in Japan, I'll bring you up to Anonji. And the rest is history. He brought me up here, and I'm back living here now. So 9 months ago when I arrived here, I was full of life and vigor and thinking this is the start of something. And I thought I might stay for a year. I had a year's visa with an option to extend. And a week later, I was saying to Jinen Roshi, my teacher, I think I've made a mistake here and I might leave. I was really ready to go home after a week. And I'd already done a week previous to that. And the week I thought was great. And I thought if I can do a week, I can do 3 weeks, or I can do a month. And if I can do a month, I can do 3 months. And I thought I'd just take it in steps like that. But I was ready to leave within the first week. It was just I wasn't prepared for the intensity of the practice. And now I had been through Army boot camp, and I was a karate practitioner for 55 years. And I thought I was pretty tough, but this is pretty brutal training. Sitting doing nothing for all day takes it out of you. So it was interesting tracking my own thoughts through that time to try to figure out how long I was going to stay. But anyway, Jinen Roshi took me aside and he said, look, just take a breath, go back, have a sit for a while and see how you go. And 9 months later, here I am. But I've had some ups and downs. I've got to admit that it's been difficult at times, much harder than my Army boot camp days. That was physically hard, but the mental toughness I think you need to do to sit all day. We sit for an inordinate amount of time here, so we do a bit. The least we do is about 10 hours of sitting during the day, and sometimes 12. Just sort of fluctuates, depends on the mood of things. But we do at least 10 hours a day in 40-minute increments with a little break for some walking meditation in between. And that's a long day. We're up at 4:30 in the morning. We start our sitting at 10 minutes to 5. And we're off the cushion at about 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. in the evening with some things on during the day, a little work program during the day and some meal times. But apart from that, we're sitting that whole time. So zazen practice, it does seem to be a very simple thing to do, just sitting People just sit all the time. But usually when you're just sitting, you're doing other things. You're talking, you're engaging with other people, you're thinking about things and organising things, and your mind's working and things work in a natural sort of fashion. Whereas when you're doing zazen practice, the goal there is to not be thinking, is to just sit and just sit in a pure sense that you're not doing anything else. So just sitting almost to the exclusion of everything else apart from your normal bodily functions. And that's a difficult thing to do because thoughts just pop into consciousness out of nowhere. You don't author your own thoughts, otherwise you'd know what your thoughts were before you thought them. So thoughts just appear in consciousness, and we then choose to engage with them or not engage with them. A thought will come into consciousness, and we'll talk to it. I don't know whether you do this, but I talk to myself quite often. I'm not sure I answer myself of it, but there's a conversation that goes on in my head, and I engage with those thoughts and take them through a process, and that's the process of thinking. And what we do in Zazen is we try not to do that. We try to think about not thinking, or not think about thinking. And we do recognize that the thoughts are coming. We can't stop the thoughts from popping into consciousness, but what we try to do is not engage with them. So we look at them, we recognize that they're there, and then we shift them off to one side and continue until another one pops up, and then we shove that one out of the way as well until we finish our sitting session. But that is a very difficult thing to do, and it's quite physically draining as well, because the body has to make the brain function, or vice versa. The bodily functions still have to move while your brain is rattling off at 100 miles an hour. So while you're trying to fight off these thoughts that are attacking you from time to time, the entire body is working, and it's quite a physical endeavor as well as a mental one. So as I said, the practice here is quite intense, and that intensity I think, has been very helpful for my ability to be able to not think, to be able to let go of those thoughts, because it is just a matter of practice. We use the term practice, and we'll keep practicing till we get it right. But you need to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, and the more you practice, the better you get at it. Or certainly that's my experience. So there's a concept in Buddhism known as no gaining mind, or no gaining idea. So we're supposed to not have an aim or a goal of getting something, or getting a gain out of what it is we're doing. And so on the one hand, there's this sort of concept of sitting so that we can eventually reach enlightenment. But there's also the no gaining mind idea that says that we shouldn't have that goal in mind in the first place. So it ends up then that we are sitting for sitting's sake. We're doing the practice for the practice. It's more about the journey than it is about the destination. And I think as a human, there's probably a little devil sitting on your shoulder saying, yeah, that's okay. We'll keep this practice up and we'll get there eventually. But there's the other one there sitting saying, that's not what we're doing here. So I mean, whether that's conflictive or not, I don't know, and whether that's sort of a dual mind, and it's another thing we're trying to get rid of, is that duality. I think it's just the natural human condition that you sort of fluctuate between one or the other of those. But eventually, with enough practice, we start to break through and get away from that into a more unified mindset. I think the thing about incorporating Zen in our everyday life is that it's already there, that that our everyday life is the life that we live all the time anyway. It's not like we're trying to push Zen practice into washing the dishes. Otherwise, it becomes sort of ritualistic, and I am now doing the Zen dishes. We don't want to have it like that. We just want to live life as it is, live life as life needs to be lived, and that automatically incorporates Zen into it. So Zen is supposed to be transmitted face to face by a teacher with experience. So that's why I've come here. I needed a teacher with experience, and I needed that face to face practice, and I needed someone who was authentic. And the more and more I learnt about who my current teacher was, people were telling me this guy's the real deal. He's one of the ones that you can seek out and are able to get some knowledge and experience from. So he's not a teacher in the traditional sense where he's giving you information and you're taking notes and trying to take all that in. He's more of a guide. He pushes you one way and the other and lets you drift into unknown areas and then pushes you back into the other side again. So it's been an interesting exercise, but one I'll carry with me forever.
When I came here, I had no aspiration to become a monk. There was no goal. There was just to come and to figure it out as I went along. And I realized as things went forward that the best way for me to help Jinoroshi going forward was to commit to something bigger than myself. And what I would like to be able to do is introduce zazen to other people who, well, like myself, have been looking for something that might assist them in moving themselves forward. So that's what I want to do when I go back to Australia, is make zazen available to people like my own peer group in the veteran community and others who might be able to draw something from that experience. Well, one of the core teachings of zazen is to let go of thought. And a lot of us in the veteran community are bound up in thought, and thought of things that have happened in the past, things that we might have experienced in the past, and thought of how that might affect us in the future going forward in relationships with our families and things like that. So the ability to be able to do that, to let go of thought and move forward has been very valuable to me the last few years. And I'd like to be able to share that with others.
Although people just take care of the past, present, future, the people just always struggling, whilst people just forget about the kind of intellectual understanding. Those are past, the present, or future, just created all of the other thinking. See, whilst other people just forget about that, there's no problem. Then people just become very flexible. kind of what you think is about a Buddha.
Yeah, zazen shouldn't be just a therapy for people. But I think if we don't recognize the fact that it actually is therapeutic, then we're sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater if we don't use it to its best effect. And so I think that while therapy isn't the aim of zazen, it has some very strong therapeutic effects that, in my experience, it has been very beneficial for my PTSD. But I wouldn't want people to reject other forms of therapy and, medication or whatever that might be. I don't think that zazen is a replacement for mental health interventions, but it's certainly I have had some very good success.
The way I say last thing is what he just mentioned about that, but the gradual step by step, he will be able to just recognize what the zazen is, kind of the way of just separate from the other, what you think about the suffering, you see. But he's on or his will or just that. So that, but simply just do more, and the more you'll be able to just understand what Shakur Buddha's realization, even in the concept. That's the things I would like him to do.
But this is a very unique space that Jinen San has provided for us and others. A lot of larger temples are very much to do with the propagation of the religion rather than anything else, whereas this provides an opportunity for individuals to come and take a deep dive into zazen, and that's not available in a lot of places. And Jinen Roshi provides that, both the opportunity and the facility for us to be able to do that. I think it's a very important thing, and it's reflected in the amount of monks who come here, who are actually monks in other temples, who come here when they can to simply sit zazen, because it provides them that opportunity to be able to do that.
We are exactly we are, but we don't know much about who we are. Only just Shakyamuni Buddha, first person who just realized who we are. See? That's the thing, see? We have to do zazen. No, the reason why he would be able to just realize them, who he was is the shit by zazen. As long as a person who just want to just realize who he is, zazen is the best way to do.
For me, zazen practice has been something not to believe in, but to do. And so it is, it's different from worship. We don't sit here and say prayers. We actually are physically involved in an activity that does things to our body and mind at the same time. And so I think it's very possible to be as irreligious as I am, and get into a deep practice of zazen.
What would your message be to anyone that's interested to practice zazen and perhaps even come here?
So, this is a way we were saying of what the Patrick is saying is the person who just come never refuse. People the person who just go and kept on refuse. As long as the people who just want to just hear the food, we are so welcome to just have a kind of person to just practice with us. Then, if that person who just realized where he or she is a tremendous, he things just happen. So these things would actually just recommend this. The people who just want to just practice zazen.
And all you need to practice zazen is 1 square meter.
Sounds that's right. Kind of this 1 square meter. No, as long as you just want to sit there, it's just 1 square meter space is enough. If not, the half of it teacher in the kind of non-decrease, if you don't have a kind of non-decrease, it's not necessary. It's just simply sit and whatever just thinking of self to come out in your mind, it's just released then as a thing. Then eventually, once given spiritual, how would it become wholly? That is that.